All right. Thanks everyone again so much for joining us tonight for our Get Out the Vote kickoff for the 2026 primary election cycle. My name's Danielle. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Organizing with AAPI New Jersey. So if you're just joining us, we'd love for you to jot down in the chat box your name, pronouns, and the township that you're joining us from. Looks like we've got some great North and Central Jersey folks in the room with us today. During our time today, I'll share a little bit about AAPI New Jersey if you're new to the organization. We'll go into miniVAN and deep canvassing, and then we'll wrap up with a brief Know Your Rights, or as we say, KYR, about canvassing out in the field. So AAPI New Jersey, as Asian American Pacific Islanders of New Jersey, we as an organization are about 6 years old, and our mission is to champion the representation, rights, well-being, culture, and contributions of the state's over 1 million Asian American Pacific Islanders. We do this through work on the advocacy policy front, on education, and on culture and community building. So I'll dive into those areas very quickly. In 2026, some of our policy advocacy focus areas include immigrant protections, that's sort of tied in with what we'll share at the end with the Know Your Rights. Voting rights, the New Jersey Voting Rights Act, or the New Jersey John Lewis Voter Empowerment Act, which is currently going through sessions. We're interested in state budget advocacy for Asian American communities. And we're really looking on models that have existed in both New York and California. We're interested in language access implementation. There was a law that passed stating that state agencies had to provide their critical documents in various languages. So we're really focused on that implementation and have a report coming out soon, actually. Data disaggregation, similar to language access, a law was passed around this. We just want to make sure that it's happening in a way that is really considerate of the different API communities. We're looking at police accountability and alternative crisis response, and then some federal policymaking and defense. If you follow us on socials, you might have seen that a group of us went down to DC towards the end of, oh no, that was the beginning of this month, April 1st, for the Birthright Citizenship Rally outside the Supreme Court. Within the civic engagement work, we're really interested in voter registration and voter turnout, particularly voter turnout, and really scaling up that work that we do in partnership with organizations like API Vote. They're one of our national partners and funding organizations. The Million Voters Project, which sort of lives within the We the People coalition. So if you were with us last year, you might remember that we did some canvassing in partnership with Latino Action Network Foundation, NAACP, New Brunswick, and other organizations who are part of this coalition. We're interested in voter education, making sure that APIs in New Jersey are ready to vote and really importantly, know their rights when they're going to the polls. So we actually conduct exit polling. We'll be doing that again across the state on election day on June 2nd, if you'd like to join us for that. We do this in partnership with the Asian American Federation, with ALTA, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. And they've been conducting exit polling for many, many years now. And within that, we like to make sure that voters know what their rights are when they're at the polls and that they're being respected. Some things that we've seen include people being denied access to bring their assister with them into the polls, which is a violation of someone's voting rights. So these are the types of things that we're looking out for, or things even around language access, making sure there's signage in different languages. In Middlesex County, it's required to also be not just in English, but also in Gujarati and Hindi. And then in Bergen County, it's required to also be in Korean. So we always want to make sure we're keeping an eye out for that. We're also working on candidate questionnaires. We'll be hopefully getting this up in early to mid-May for all of the congressional candidates. And then we like to put this all up on our website, make sure that people have access to this information. We're also interested in leadership development, really building out that pipeline of AAPI leadership. So we'll work in partnership with groups like Rutgers Center for American Women in Politics for their training to encourage women to run for office. Particularly, they have a track for Asian American women, and bring in groups like New American Leaders to share some of their lead workshops with us sometimes. So really interested in making sure that Asian Americans are represented in the halls where decisions are made. Lastly, and this one might seem far away, is census and redistricting preparation. 2030, you might think like, oh, that's still 4 years ago, but or 4 years from now, but all that groundwork has to start now. And then quickly about our work in the education front, we have an initiative called Teach Asian American Stories, or TAS for short. This branch of the organization really focuses on implementation of the curriculum mandate. So in 2022, there was a bill passed stating that Asian American history contributions be taught in public schools. There was no funding aligned with that passage, so our organization has really taken it upon itself to make sure that happens and bring things to the classroom. So we do that with consultative services, one-on-one coaching. We do grants for professional development and resources. We have fellows who work with a professor, Dr. Kathy Joshi from Farley Dickinson University, and sort of get trained and then can lead other trainings for the teachers. And it's a really wonderful, wonderful group of teachers who are coming together to learn this content. We also provide history content, curricular resources, curriculum guides, and all the content that we make roots like back to the curriculum standards that each of the districts have. We also have this incredible map. If you haven't seen it, it traces the history of Asians in New Jersey, and it goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War. So it's very cool to see how far Asian American history goes back into New Jersey. But coming up onto today in New Jersey, in 2025, we actually had one of the highest voter turnouts in New Jersey history. I think it was like since, actually can't remember the stats, so I'm not gonna misrepresent it, but 54% voter turnout was really, really high in our general election. So very excited to continue this trend. And we do, one thing that we're interested in our outreach is deep canvassing. So what is deep canvassing? It's very similar to regular door knocking, except that we're not just there for a transactional piece where we're saying, hey, we want you to vote, or we need you to vote. It's also about getting to understand, what people in that community are thinking about, what is keeping them up all night, what do they love most about that community, and really getting a better understanding of that. Results from last year's deep canvassing, which we did during both the primary and general, are actually informing a report that we'll be publishing shortly to share more information about what we've learned from our community members. And we do have someone on the line, actually a couple people who have done this in the past, but I would love to turn it over to Abraham, who will be our civic engagement intern and is very experienced in deep canvassing with us. And so would love if you could just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your perspective on deep canvassing.
Hi, so my name's Brahim. I'm an intern at AAPI for this election season. So I live in Edison, and I've mainly canvassed in Edison. And canvassing has really taught me a lot about how to talk to other people, but it's also helped me understand the issues of my community. And with that, it kind of helps me do other things, and also helps me advocate for, advocate for Edison problems myself. So it's like a really good experience, and I hope you guys have fun when you guys do it as well.
So thank you so much, Ibrahim. So when folks are out deep canvassing, we will also be providing some information. We'll have these laminated cards that we can use to help guide people during one part of the conversation. But really, these are meant to be friendly conversations rather than the focus on like, oh, you need to go vote. So again, it's about finding that common ground, thinking about shared values, and really active listening. Especially as a nonpartisan organization, we're not trying to convince people to vote for a specific candidate or a specific party. So for us, it's really about listening and learning from community members about what they're interested in, what they want to see more of, what changes they want to see happen. And we do this sort of deep canvassing script in partnership with some of the orgs I mentioned, like We the People Coalition, and then also like to collect data that's helpful for our API vote partners. So at the end of these conversations, we also ask, what is your preferred language, just so we can track that information, and then hopefully, if we need to do language specific outreach, that's really helpful for us to know. If you're new to canvassing, do not worry, you don't have to memorize everything we just shared. We will be using the miniVAN app. and this will actually have the script in the system for you. So I'm gonna change my screen shares and then do a little bit of a miniVAN tutorial. Okay, I think folks can see. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so for canvassing, we ask you to download the miniVAN app. I think you will be prompted to make an account. When you open up the app, you'll see this home screen, and then the canvassing captain will provide you with a number. So you'll hit enter new list, type in the number, and then hit download list. New features. All right, so this is what you'll see when you put in your list into miniVAN. If you were to use this, it's like has everyone by, it goes by, yeah. I would not recommend going this way because it's by the name of the street, which is not super helpful. What you'll want to do is just zoom in and use the map feature. And so this is turf that has been pre-cut, so everyone will have a turf that's in the same region. And then when you break out into your teams, this is the area that you'll be going to. So, for example, if I'm Christie Street is the closest one, I will click on that house. It will bring up information. I click open household. And then it will provide me the name, the age, and the party number. But again, we're nonpartisan. We don't care about what that letter is. So you will click on the person's name and then you go into the script. So it'd be like, hi, I'm Danielle. I'm a volunteer with AAPI New Jersey. Is George available? If he is, then be like, great, how are you doing today? I would go into what we're doing here. So I'm here today because we're talking to Edison residents about the challenges our communities face. And so to kind of just keep going, scroll down through the script. I'll space things out better. This is really clunky. Oh yeah, I'll fix the formatting. Yeah, you just go through the whole script. You drop in the language preferences. If they're not there, you would hit the big red button. I couldn't reach this contact. If you want to provide any other information, you can drop that into notes. And then you would make sure you hit, there's this little cloud with the up arrow on the top right-hand corner. I would just recommend clicking that every time you have a conversation. There was a pop-up that said autosave is on. I don't find autosave to always be 100% reliable. I think Ibrahim and Zuhaib, there was one day that I want to say your groups didn't get fully logged with the autosave. So just make sure you're hitting that cloud button at the top. All right. And then actually, I think from here is next. Oh, they changed it. Glad I'm doing this training. So at the bottom left, there's like up and down arrows. That will take you to the next house. But again, I like to go by the map version since, if I was going by the arrows, it might take me from 75 Christie Street to 86 Christie Street, when in reality, I'm closer probably to 108 Union Ave. So I would recommend using the map feature to navigate through this. You'll notice some of them have a 2. That means there's 2 people in the household. So you can ask for either one of them. I would remember, okay, Matthew and Olivia. I click in, I go through the script. Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm a volunteer with AAPI New Jersey. Is Matthew or Olivia available? If you use I couldn't reach this contact, I believe that will automatically mark that for both contacts. All right, so that is miniVAN in a nutshell. You can also track your progress, which is fun. You can see sometimes depending on our setting, it'll be like, oh, you've reached 50% of your doors, which sometimes is nice to see. But again, you see that the auto sync is about every 6 minutes out. That's why I recommend, again, making sure you click that button. Okay. And so basically every time you do a new canvassing session, you would just hit download a new list and download a new list and put in that number. I'm literally hiding my phone under a blanket because it's like echoing when I'm talking through it. Um, yeah, so during is there a minimum number of houses we must visit on the day? Nope, there's no minimum. Um, it honestly depends on where you're canvassing. If you're in Edison, the houses might be further apart. Our teams can maybe get through like I would say like 25 to 30 or 35 houses. But if you're in somewhere like Fort Lee or Pal Park or Jersey City, where all the buildings are sort of connected and very close to each other, it will be, much faster. You might be able to get through like 60 to 70 houses during your time. It also depends on your team. Um, canvas or safety is our top priority. So we'll usually have people go out in groups of 2 or 3. So that can also impact how many people or how many houses you'll hit together. So when we do our canvassing, we will send you a central meeting location. Everybody will meet up there. And then either a staff member or a canvassing captain who has been someone who's been doing this work with us for a while will be there to greet you. We'll make sure everyone has their t-shirts. We have these vote t-shirts. They say it in a couple different Asian languages. We'll give everybody water bottles, some snacks, and some materials. And then they'll also give you your codes so you'll know to go out. We also like to ask that everyone gets the cell phone number of the captain, just so that you can reach out if there's any issues. And then we have people going out. I'd say it's about 2.5 hours that you'll be out. And then we come back for a debrief just to hear how everything went. If there are any stories or anecdotes, we really want to be collecting that information. So if you had like a really lovely conversation with someone who said that they were really grateful or they really want to check out the information, or even better, they want to volunteer with you too, we want to hear those kinds of stories. Um, Honestly, we also want to hear stories if you said like, I had a really tough time today. I only got like 3 doors opened for me, because that's also helpful information for us to know. Do we take notes directly into the app in real time, or can those responses be entered afterward? We like the notes to happen in the app real time. That way they're connected to an individual's account. But if it's more of like that anecdote that you just want to share, you can share that with us afterwards. But if it's something specific about a person, we want that on their account. I'm going to jump back into the slide. So some conversations that you might have with people, they might say like, "Oh, my vote doesn't matter," or like, "Why should I even vote?" Which is like a very real thing. I think a lot of the statistics coming out of the last couple of elections show that there's a lot of apathy going around right now about voting in elections. There's also a lot of mis and disinformation going around elections about like election fraud and mail-in ballots and things like that. So again, it's not our job to really like be a trusted messenger for the government, but really to help them understand what their power is. Especially at local and state level, a lot of these elections have very small margins. And so those ones are really, really important. We see how every vote counts. In Montclair, actually, we just had a special election for deciding what to do around this school debt. Um, it was decided by 8 votes, which is such a tiny margin, but I think a really good example of why it's so important that everybody votes and makes their voices heard. Because, I mean, 8 votes is wild because I am like, I know 8 people that voted the same way as I did. Like, Imagine if they didn't show up to the polls. Um, yeah, and Ken has an example too of two different votes with one that narrowly passed and failed. Yeah, that's wild. And I love that. They wouldn't be trying to so hard to suppress votes if it didn't matter. That is absolutely correct. And I think we're seeing that a lot, federally, with the Save America Act, which is the acronym. But if that were to pass, it would disenfranchise millions of voters, especially women and voters of color, because it would require documentary proof of citizenship, or DPOC. Um, and so like if a woman's name on her current, on her current voter file doesn't match her birth certificate, which is a document that counts as proof of citizenship, they would not be able to vote. Or if like someone just didn't have a passport, but they were born here and they don't have their birth certificate, like they would not be able to vote. So um I think to your point, Ken, they're trying, administrations are trying very hard to restrict and disenfranchise voters, and they only do that because they know that voting can be a very powerful tool. A lot of times you'll get questions about who should I vote for. This one, because we're a nonpartisan organization, we have no say about who they vote for or who we would want, what party or candidate, but we do have the candidate questionnaire coming out soon. If you're out canvassing with us this week, we won't have that resource yet ready just yet, but we will have little flyers that have QR codes on them. You can share that with people. They can scan the QR code, and we'll hopefully have that candidate questionnaire up within probably, again, early May is our target date for that. All right. Um, if you've volunteered with us in the past, we do have another GOTV registration and payment form for folks to fill out. Um, this is also linked if you've signed up on Mobilize. We have this linked in the response email, or you can scan the QR code here to the registration and payment form. I will share that we're each cycle, we're going through an evolution and trying to make it a better and smoother process for everybody involved. We have our idea of what we're going to do for this year, but it's not 100% finalized just yet. But for folks that are expecting to expect pay, we will only be doing ACH this year. We will not be mailing any more checks. And this year we're only doing pay for canvassing and phone banking, whereas text banking is just a fully unpaid volunteer opportunity. Okay. And then I'm looking in the chat box from Nang. Face 6 months before, the household name from the app passed away. Should continue with the other household members, although the name is on the app. For example, like grandpa passed away. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so for the grandparent, we would mark them as deceased. Unfortunately, there's no way for us to then input a new person. So if they're not coming up in the app, it likely means that they're not registered to vote at that address. So we would just encourage them to register to vote at that particular address. And then if we're canvassing this area again, then we might be able to chat with that person. Yeah. And yes, definitely wish your condolences before sharing that. Thank you, Ken. All right. Are there any questions generally about canvassing before we jump into the Know Your Rights portion? No? Okay. Gonna jump into Know Your Rights then. So all of our canvassers will receive this community safety cheat sheet. So you'll be able to take it out in the field with you. You don't have to memorize this. It just has some advice. We have this acronym OPEN. So observe. So when you're knocking and ringing the bell, making sure you take a step back rather than sort of knocking on the door and being right there. Especially right now with what's going on, excuse me, with immigration enforcement, we want to make sure that whoever we're speaking to feels safe and like they have space. So definitely knock, take a step back. Make sure that when you're introducing yourself, when you're presenting yourself, you give your name, the organization that you're with, and be calm, neutral, welcoming, friendly. Like don't come off very like stern or too focused. We want this again to be an open conversation. Um, engage. If a resident doesn't speak English, we do have some in-language flyers that you can use. I've definitely encountered this canvassing in the field. I only speak English, and so if I'm interacting with, for example, a Korean speaking voter, we will have these flyers with us in language. And so I will sometimes just like point to the sheet and then they'll point it back to me. And I'm like, great, thank you. um, so yeah, make sure that yeah, we'll have those materials and that don't just like give up once you see that it's not an English speaker. Try to engage with them. And then never escalate. If someone is hostile, you just say thank you and you walk away. Again, canvasser safety is our number one priority. So we just want to make sure that you're safe. Um, again, if there are signs that say no trespassing or no soliciting, do not go to those houses. You can just mark in the app, like could not reach. If the door to a house is like up a staircase and that's around the corner and you can't see the street from there, I would also recommend not going into that door because we just want to make sure that like your partner or your buddy has a line of sight to you and vice versa. And then we have a very brief know your rights on the other side of that, this cheat sheet that has questions that you can ask if you are detained by ICE or other law enforcement, which is, am I being detained and am I free to go? You have the right to remain silent. They cannot search your belongings unless they have a valid warrant signed by a judge. You can say things like, I do not consent to this search, and you can and should definitely record those interactions if it's safe. If you do witness ICE, you can report it. We have the hotline here that goes to Dyer. And what you'd want to report is salute. That's size. How many of them are there? Actions or activity. What are they doing? Are they getting ready for a raid? Are they just hanging out? Are they actively carrying out arrests? Location or direction. Are they at a particular business or what intersection are they at? Time for the time and date of observation, which if you're calling in real time is like that's when that's the moment. And then equipment and weapons. Do they have their like police vehicles with them? Are they do they have tasers? Do they have guns? Do they have handcuffs? That kind of thing. Um, and just to provide a little bit more context of why we're adding this portion to the training and we're making sure that everyone has those canvasser cheat sheets is that we're seeing a huge escalation across the country. Um, we've seen a lot of impunity in the way that immigration enforcement has operated from the killings of Renee Nicole Good, Alex Preddy, Keith Porter, everything that's happened in Minnesota. Folks might have seen recently, just was it 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, there was a woman arrested in Jersey City. And a lot of this work is sort of backed by the private prison industry. So Geo Group and Core Civic operate a lot of the detention centers. And so they stand to gain a lot from this whole detention migrant system. And they've also made a lot of donations to political campaigns. We also want to emphasize that immigration has always existed. It's just the laws that are new, right? Immigration and migration are patterns of human history. It's really just the borders and the laws that we're seeing now that are new. Specifically in New Jersey, And honestly, there's been a lot of updates in what's going on in New Jersey, even since we've made this deck. But as of earlier this year, we had the Safe Communities Act, which was passed by Governor Murphy, which essentially protects places like schools, hospitals, shelters, and food pantries from ICE. We have the Immigrant Trust Directive, which was actually codified to the Immigrant Trust Act, but this essentially limits the cooperation between state, local, and county law enforcement with ICE. So essentially, like unless they have like a signed federal warrant that they're executing, like our local and county and state resources are staying local, county, and state. They are not assisting with this federal agenda. Um, some more updates in New Jersey. So we actually did get, again, with the Immigrant Trust Directive, did get passed a version of it. And then the other bill that got passed is around data privacy and protection. So essentially saying that like certain agencies can't share information with DHS. Also in New Jersey, we're seeing things like, getting sued over some executive orders. So Governor Sherrill passed an executive order banning ICE from using state property. Similarly, we've seen that like bills passed like that on municipal level, saying like ICE can't use municipal or county properties for mobilizations. There's also a bill passed to ban ICE from wearing masks, which is also facing legal challenge. Um, we've got Roxbury, which Ken also mentioned in the chat box. So Roxbury is a big warehouse out in Roxbury Township where their ICE is hoping to convert that into a warehouse to house, to detain up to 1,500 individuals. No one in Roxbury wants this. No one in New Jersey, quite frankly, wants this. But even in that local community in Roxbury, this is not something that their community wants, that their council wants. And so we're seeing a lot of activists sort of rally around this cause. At the end of last year, we also saw a 41-year-old detainee. He was from Haiti. He died while he was in ICE custody. And then also at Delaney Hall, we are seeing the criminalization of Congresswoman LaMonica McIvers. So she was doing an oversight visit along with Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman and Congressman Rob Menendez Jr. And Mayor Ras Baraka of Newark was also there trying to get access to this facility, which is in his township. The Congress people do have jurisdiction to conduct an oversight visit of the facility. At that particular event, Mayor Ras Baraka was arrested. Charges were eventually dropped, but the charges against Congresswoman McIver remain, and she could face up to 17 years in prison for essentially just doing her job. So again, if you are on the street and you see ICE, I think the main two we want you to remember from this list are, am I being detained? And am I free to go? My colleague Shira, who I think some of you have met, has shared a story that one time she was stopped by law enforcement and asked, am I being detained? Am I free to go? And kind of like, they said no, but then to am I being detained? And then when she asked, am I free to go? They kind of like, I don't know. And she kept looping it until they got annoyed and just like let her go. So we do have real world examples of that, asking these two questions being helpful for people. The other things, again, I choose to remain silent. I do not consent to the search. You can ask the officer for what their name and badge number are as well. Can't guarantee they'd give it to you, but you can always ask. Again, on the street, don't say or answer anything other than your name or address. Do not give them your ID or belongings unless they have a signed judicial warrant. Do not lie or give fake documents. Do not argue or resist arrest. And if you are detained, do not sign anything that an officer or ICE gives you. The image you see on the right, that's a voluntary departure form. So again, especially if you have not spoken to a lawyer, do not sign anything. All right. I did skip a couple sections of our Know Your Rights training because I don't think we'll be in a situation where we're like out of business or at your own home. But I do want to again repeat the information about if you witness ICE, we have this acronym salute. And then the number you'll reach out to is DIRE. That's 888-347-3767. If y'all want to take out your cell phones right now, I invite you to do so. So you can put in the hotline. You can put it under DIRE, DIRE, and the number is 888-347-3767. Okay. And again, with reporting, if you can record them, as long as you are not, quote, interfering with their operations. Um, there's no guideline on what that means and what that distance is. I think that, again, the key thing is your safety, what you feel comfortable doing, and also, you understanding what your personal risk is and what your privilege is. So do not do anything that you feel unsafe doing. Again, you can ask for their badge numbers. You don't have to give them the phone if they like try to get your phone or anything. Um, you don't have to give that to them unless they have a judicial warrant. Okay. We also recognize that it's a lot to talk about immigration. This is a very difficult and heavy topic. However, you're feeling about it right now is valid. But we do want to take a moment to sort of help regulate our nervous system to get us back to a baseline. So I invite you to put out your hand, and now Zoom thinks I'm raising my hand. It's fine. And then take your pointer finger, start at the base of your palm. And then as you trace up your finger, you're going to breathe in, going down, breathe out, going up, breathing in, going down, breathing out, going up, breathing in, going down, breathing out, going up, breathing in, down, breathing out, going back up, breathing in, and down, breathing out. So if you did that alongside me, thank you for indulging. Again, we acknowledge this is a really heavy and difficult topic. So we just want to make sure that, whenever you're participating in one of these trainings or having these conversations, that you're able to sort of recalibrate back to a more neutral space. All right. So that pretty much wraps up the KYR section and the training. I'm just going to drop in, again, I'll drop in our mobilized link. This is how all of you found out about today's kickoff, and where you'll find all of our additional opportunities. So we'll again be doing canvassing in Bergen, Hudson, and Middlesex counties, and then we'll also be doing phone banking and text banking. For those, we really target Asian American voters across the whole state of New Jersey. And yeah, if you have any other questions about canvassing or GOTV work, feel free to drop that in the chat. Yep, so there is a different training for phone banking and text banking. That'll be tomorrow night. In the past, we've done it as the same training, but since there is this different in-person element with the KYR, I split it up into two this year. So there is a separate training tomorrow. Hope you can make it. If not, again, we'll be recording the session, and we just ask that folks are able to watch it before participating in either phone banking or text banking. Okay. Well, I'm seeing thumbs ups. That's awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Hope to see you tomorrow or in person in one of our future sessions. Thanks, everyone.